The auditorium shimmered beneath warm golden lights, filled with proud families clutching bouquets and cameras. Laughter echoed between rows of polished wooden seats, and every few seconds, someone stood to wave excitedly at a graduate scanning the crowd. I stood near the edge of the stage in my doctoral robe, fingers brushing the velvet trim of my hood, searching for two familiar faces. Row G, seats 12 and 13, empty. I checked my phone again, even though I already knew there were no new messages. I had called my parents 3 times that morning. The last response from my mother was short and careful. "We can't make it. Your brother has rehearsal for his leadership ceremony today. You know how important this is for his career. Congratulations, Beta. Congratulations." 6 years of research, 6 years of living on scholarships, tutoring part-time, skipping holidays, and surviving on instant noodles. 6 years of being told my PhD in environmental policy was too theoretical, and not practical, and my father's favorite word, useless. Why don't you do something real like RM? He used to say, business, finance, something that actually pays. RM, the golden son, MBA at Kingswell Institute. Corporate internship at a multinational firm. Suits, presentations, networking dinners. Everything my parents could proudly explain to relatives without stumbling over words like climate governance or urban sustainability frameworks. My name was called, Dr. Ayesha Rahman. The word doctor echoed through the hall. The audience applauded warmly. I walked across the stage with steady steps, accepting my degree from the dean. Cameras flashed, smiles surrounded me. But when I glanced at row G again, those 2 empty seats felt louder than any applause. I shook hands, posed for the official photograph, and stepped off the stage alone. Outside, families wrapped graduates in hugs, draped garlands around their necks, and took endless selfies. I stood holding my diploma tube, watching joy happen around me like I was separated by glass. I didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, I bought a single cupcake from a campus cafe on my way back to my apartment. I placed it on my small desk beside piles of research drafts and lit a thin white candle. For me, I whispered, before blowing it out. Later that evening, while our family group chat filled with photos of Aram in a sharp navy suit at his rehearsal, my phone buzzed with an email I had almost ignored. An international climate policy think tank wanted to offer me a research fellowship, leadership track, policy influence at the national level. I stared at the screen. Maybe my degree wasn't useless. Maybe it was simply unseen. With a steady breath, I clicked accept, and somewhere inside the quiet ache of that day, something stronger than disappointment began to grow. The fellowship changed everything, and nothing. On paper, I had stepped into a powerful space. The International Climate Policy Consortium, a think tank that advised governments on sustainable development frameworks. In reality, my days were filled with relentless deadlines, complex data models, and meetings where I was often the youngest person at the table, and the only woman under 40. I rented a modest apartment close to the office, and built a life that revolved around research. My mornings began before sunrise, coffee in one hand, policy drafts in the other. I learned how to translate dense academic theory into actionable legislation. I learned how to defend my ideas in rooms filled with skeptical officials. I learned how to be calm when my work was questioned. What I didn't learn, what I stopped trying to learn, was how to make my parents understand. Every Sunday I called home. My mother would update me on relatives and neighborhood weddings. My father would eventually ask, "So, are you earning properly now?" I would explain that I was leading a subcommittee drafting an urban emissions reduction framework. There would be silence. Then, "That's good. RM just got promoted to senior associate. RM's life moved fast, new job title. New car, business trips to Dubai and Singapore. LinkedIn posts celebrating strategic growth. My parents' pride glowed through every word they spoke about him. When I mentioned that one of my policy briefs had been cited in Parliament, my father replied, "That's nice. But are you thinking of something more stable?" More stable than shaping national environmental law. I stopped sharing details. Instead, I poured myself deeper into work. Months blurred into years. I co-authored a climate adaptation model adopted by 3 major cities. I represented our consortium at a global summit in Geneva. My research began appearing in international journals. Recognition came quietly at first. An email here, a speaking invitation there. Then came the breakthrough. The government announced the National Environmental Reform Initiative, the largest sustainability overhaul in the country's history. And at the press conference, my name was introduced as lead policy architect. Overnight, my inbox exploded. Journalists requested interviews. Universities invited me to lecture. My phone buzzed constantly, including one unfamiliar number. Kingswell Institute, Aram's university. They were hosting their annual Leadership and Excellence ceremony, a grand event honoring top graduates and young industry leaders. This year, they wanted a keynote speaker whose work demonstrated impact beyond corporate profit. They wanted me to open the evening. I stared at the formal invitation for a long time, my reflection faintly visible in my laptop screen. The same institution my parents had once called real success, the same stage where Aram would be receiving his Young Corporate Star Award. For a moment old hurt resurfaced, then it faded. This wasn't revenge, it was alignment. I typed my response carefully. I would be honored to accept, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing recognition. I felt like recognition was finally catching up to me. Kingswell Institute looked even grander than I remembered from the photos Aram used to send home. Marble pillars framed the entrance, banners of deep blue and gold hung from balconies, and a red carpet stretched toward the main hall where tonight's Leadership and Excellence ceremony would take place. I arrived early, escorted through a private entrance reserved for keynote guests. The event coordinator handed me a polished program booklet. My name was printed beneath the bold heading, Keynote Address Dr. Ayesha Rahman, Lead Architect of the National Environmental Reform Initiative. Seeing it in ink felt surreal. Backstage, I adjusted the simple ivory sari I had chosen, elegant but understated. No flashy labels, no dramatic statement, just quiet confidence. Through a narrow gap in the curtain, I could see the audience filling their seats. The front rows were reserved for award recipients and their families, and there they were. My parents sat proudly in the center of the first row. My mother wore her favorite silk outfit, the one she saved for important occasions. My father leaned slightly toward Aram, who stood beside them in a perfectly tailored navy suit, laughing with one of his professors. They hadn't noticed the program yet. The host's voice boomed through the hall as the ceremony began. Applause rippled across the room as sponsors were thanked and achievements highlighted. Aram's award was scheduled after the keynote. My heartbeat remained steady. 2 years ago, empty seats had echoed louder than applause. Tonight, the hall was full, and so was I. And now, the host announced, before we recognize our distinguished awardees, we are honored to welcome a visionary leader whose work has reshaped our nation's environmental policy. A pause. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ayesha Rahman. The name hung in the air. I stepped into the light. For a split second, the room was silent, then whispers, heads turning, pages of programs flipping quickly. I saw it the exact moment recognition dawned on my parents' faces. My mother's hand slowly rose to her mouth. My father's confident posture faltered. Aram froze, eyes locked on me as if trying to reconcile the sister he teased with the woman standing at the podium. I placed my notes down but didn't look at them. Good evening. I began, voice calm and clear. I once believed success meant being understood by everyone around you. I've since learned that sometimes real impact grows quietly, long before anyone notices. The room listened. I spoke about resilience, about choosing purpose over applause, about building systems that protect future generations rather than chasing immediate praise. I never mentioned my parents. I never mentioned Aram. I didn't need to. When I finished, the silence returned, but this time it was heavy with admiration. Then the applause began, and it didn't stop. The applause rose slowly at first, like a wave gathering strength. Then it swelled loud, sustained, undeniable. The entire hall stood, professors, executives, students, industry leaders. A standing ovation for me. I stepped back from the podium, offering a small nod of gratitude, but inside, something far deeper was settling into place. This wasn't triumph over anyone. It was triumph over doubt, theirs and mine. As the applause faded and the ceremony transitioned to the awards segment, I returned backstage. My hands trembled slightly now that the moment had passed, not from nerves, from release. 2 years ago, I had stood alone in an auditorium staring at empty seats. Tonight, the same kind of seats were filled, but I no longer needed to check if anyone important was sitting in them. Because I was. After RM received his award smiling, composed, every bit the golden sun the university adored. The reception began in the adjoining hall. Crystal chandeliers reflected off polished floors as guests mingled, discussing leadership, innovation, and impact. I didn't have to search for my parents this time. They came to me. My mother reached first. Her eyes were red, mascara slightly smudged. Ayesha, her voice trembled in a way I had never heard before. We didn't know. We had no idea it was this. I held her hands gently. I tried to tell you. She nodded, guilt washing across her expression. My father stood unusually quiet. The man who always had opinions, advice, and comparisons now struggled for words. Finally, he cleared his throat. I thought stability meant corporate success. I didn't understand what you were building. It's okay, I said softly. And I meant it, because holding on to resentment would have made tonight smaller. RM approached last. He looked different, not diminished, just thoughtful. You know, he said with a half-smile, they introduced you before me, that's a first. I laughed lightly. Then his expression turned sincere. I'm proud of you, sis. I didn't realize how big your work was. I guess I was too busy chasing titles, and I was too busy chasing validation. I admitted. We stood there, not rivals, not comparisons, just siblings finding balance. Later, as my parents introduced me to relatives and faculty members with unmistakable pride, I felt something surprising. Peace, not because they finally approved, but because I no longer needed them to. The sweetest revenge had never been about humiliating them on a grand stage. It was about standing on that stage without bitterness. It was about succeeding without losing softness. And as I left Kingswell Institute that night, heels clicking against marble floors, I realized something powerful. The girl who once stared at empty seats had filled her own space in the world. And this time, no one could overlook her.